Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for July 25th. 2018, still a great year to be playing video games. We're joining you live. I'm joining you live from my parents' house, and I have probably the most professional streaming setup you could possibly envision. To my right is a mouse pad laid on top of a TV tray, and this laptop I have set up is actually on top of a cooler full of what else but LaCroix and the Booch. And no, I didn't get it. My mom get it. She knew I was coming home and filled it up with LaCroix and the Booch just for me. We have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today, besides the TV tray and the Booch. But first, let me introduce our guests. Chris Livingston. How you doing, Chris?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Good to hear it, man. And Steve Mester. It's been a while.
It's been like over a year, I feel like.
Really?
It's been a long time. Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, man. It's good to have you. Now we got.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. If anyone in the chat is having issues hearing, just let me know. This audio setup is a little different this time around. Taking the show on the road, it requires a bit of MacGyvering the setup a bit, but I think it's working. I'm gonna keep my voice up in case the audio is too low. But just let us know, and I'll adjust as we go along. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, I want to know what you guys have been playing, and we'll get to the obvious stuff. We'll get to No Man's Sky next. We'll get to just Monster Hunter World. We can actually talk about that today, the PC version, and we're gonna talk a little bit about World of Warcraft at the end, and always answer your questions for sure. But for that stuff, I want to know what you guys have been playing. Steve, you got to catch up. It's been a year. Give us the rundown.
Oh man, a whole year's worth of games. You know what's crazy, James? Did you write down you were playing Warframe as well?
Yeah, I was hoping to bring this up with you because I just barely touched it. I just did some introductory stuff and got my feet wet. But you've been playing a lot of Warframe. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I can give this game any kind of praise, it's that after I reviewed it, I continued to play it.
Damn.
Which I think is always impressive because when you binge a game for over 100 hours, you tend to get sick of it. But no, I've been playing lots of Warframe. I still jump in probably almost daily and just bang out a few missions. It's good fun. I'm curious to know, you played a little bit of it. How did you feel about it?
It's hard to get a grasp because I don't know what parts of that game are new or not. So the intro was, I don't know how representative it is of the rest of it. I played the first couple missions maybe, and
right.
I think what really struck me was more than anything was just the movement. It felt very, fluid is maybe a cliche we overuse, but it definitely felt very fluid. You just float through the air. There's all these cool acrobatic moves. The guns feel nice to shoot. The melee is nicely wrapped into the combat, and I think the enemies are pretty dull. But I think the point is at least this is the impression I'm getting, is that they appear in numbers, sort of overwhelming numbers. It's more about crowds. So yeah, I want to play more. I think I stopped playing because I got to the ship and looked at the UI for customizing my gear, and I was like, okay, this is gonna take some time. It's gonna really take some time to understand.
That's really one of the biggest drawbacks from that game is it is dauntingly complex. And even I'm at maybe 160 hours, and I feel like I'm still having to go to the wiki routinely and learn new things, and I don't think that ever goes away. So it's kind of the detriment to it, but it's also kind of the plus side to it, right? Because I think a lot of these games like Destiny 2 and stuff, people kind of burn out really quickly because there's just not a lot of depth to them, whereas Warframe just has a ton of depth. I've been playing for 200 hours, and I can easily see myself playing for 2,000 more. It's a big game.
Yeah, and they got some updates on the way too. Are you getting ready for those, or are those out? Is the big Venus?
No, so that was the big thing. Was out of sort of TennoCon, their big fan convention. They have a whole new open world zone coming out that looks really gorgeous. It's set on Venus, and it's very alien. It almost looks like Under the Sea if you removed the water, if that makes any kind of sense. So the flora and fauna is very evocative of ocean floor. It's set on a terraformed Venus. It's really cool. And then they are also doing a crazy No Man's Sky kind of like cooperative spaceship piloting mode where one person will or it's a little bit like a FTL, like one person's piloting the ship, another person will be like manning the guns, the enemies will be invading the ship and you'll be invading enemy ships, and so it kind of ties everything Warframe does together in one seamless package. It looks really ambitious.
And hoverboards too.
And hoverboards. We can't forget the hoverboards. There's hoverboards coming.
Right on.
But yeah, no, it's good. I'm still like really enjoying it. It's the kind of game that, because the mission structure is so like the way the game works is like you take on these missions, and these missions tend to only last maybe 5 minutes on like a good day. There's some endless missions that you can play for basically hours. But because they're only 5 minutes, it's really easy to jump in, bang out like 4 or 5 missions and jump back out and not have to feel like I'm wasting my life playing this game, even though it is like a really big grind.
I know the way Tim talks about Destiny is that he is wasting his life. So I mean, it's good to know that it's like it's big enough, or at least like can dole out its missions and such in a way that is not detrimental to your health, your mental health. That's good.
I would say like if you're looking for a good kind of shared world shooter like that, like Warframe is the best one in my opinion. Like, I don't think Destiny 2 can really hold a candle to it.
Ooh, it was funny because that was like when I think the first Destiny came out, that was like what everyone was saying, go play Warframe. And at that point, I don't think Warframe was like big enough or complex enough or maybe didn't have as much of an audience where that kind of saying, I didn't think held much water. But now, years later, it is funny to see how complex and like robust Warframe has gotten, and that saying is probably valid, extremely valid. Cool. Warframe. Anything else?
No, I mean, we'll talk about World of Warcraft because I've been playing that obviously to prepare for the expansion, and then just playing No Man's Sky and Monster Hunter today and like sort of early this week. So nothing like kind of out of the ordinary to talk about.
I know. What about you, Chris? Anything besides the obvious?
Pretty much just been No Man's Sky this week, and I think I talked about my DayZ returning habit. I'm getting back to some old games, I guess, lately. But I've been playing DayZ. Not much has been happening. I've been having trouble. What keeps happening is I'll run into people, either they have a lot of gear and I have no gear and they kill me. I have no gear and they have no gear, so there's no point in really fighting. I have a lot of gear and they have no gear, so I feel bad shooting at them. But when I have gear, I never run into other people who have gear, so I haven't like had any like cool firefights or anything. So it's been this kind of frustrating thing, and for like 3 days I was running around looking for a good fight, between geared up people, and then I logged in yesterday and they'd done a server wipe, so I have nothing again. And of course, as soon as I started playing, I ran into someone who had gear, so I'm like, God damn it, can I get my timing right on this?
You're either a victim or an asshole, it sounds like.
Yeah, I haven't really had a great time with all the guns I spend hours looking for and collecting.
So if let's say I'm someone who hasn't played since, I think the last time I played was when the standalone version first came out, so that's a long time ago. Has anything significantly changed about DayZ that would interest me and maybe draw me back in?
It's weird because like I played during the first year of standalone, and then I stopped for almost 4 years, and then I went back, and since they've a while ago, years ago, they started working on a new engine, and they just recently, a couple months ago, put this new engine up on the experimental and stress servers. But the state of the game in that new engine is kind of similar to the state the game was back in 2014 when I played it, like in terms of features, because there's a lot of stuff missing, a lot of stuff doesn't quite work. So it's weird. It's like if you played the experimental build today, you'd be like, well, this seems oddly familiar. It's kind of still not done. So like, I don't know what's there. I mean, the engine is better, is much better. Like my performance is way better than it was back then. But in terms of like, I played it back then and I want to jump in again now and see how much has changed. Like, I would probably wait a bit longer just
Yeah.
to see how the rest of these features do in the new engine when they come over. So.
That's frustrating though, because it feels like people have been doing nothing but waiting for that game to get somewhere.
Yeah, it's been a long haul for them. I don't know. It's an odd one, that's for sure. It's a very strange development cycle.
Yeah.
Well, good to hear you're still plugging away at it. Regardless, we need someone in there doing the dirty work.
What have you been playing, James?
Fortnite.
Fortnite. What's that?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about Fortnite. Yeah, I've been playing some Fortnite. It's the same thing. Well, okay, I won't spend too much time on it because I'm realizing. Well, I realized a long time ago that like Fortnite is quickly becoming the card game or the Overwatch of the show now. And I've become the monster. But some interesting changes hit this week. One, they added this legendary SMG, and they debuffed like the health of individual like the wood and brick building pieces. And what that means is like in combination with this SMG and all these other rapid fire weapons they've been adding over the last couple months, building it's like almost impossible to build anything high anymore. Everyone is up in arms because building is essentially broken, and this new SMG is like pretty much broken. So remember that Thanos like temporary mode that was around a couple months ago?
Yeah, I saw that this SMG is actually stronger than Thanos'
literally, yeah.
Finger Blast or whatever it was called.
Yeah. So
probably wasn't called a Finger Blast. His ray power.
It's way more powerful than his Finger Blast, Chris Livingston. But it is fucking A. It is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's gonna need some kind of buff, or they're gonna have to reshuffle the stats in the SMG like hierarchy, because the rare and uncommon SMGs are already pretty powerful. So I don't know. It's gonna be everyone's panicked, but they'll fix it. They're not gonna just like break the game and let it sit as it is. It's also the birthday week. It's the year anniversary of Fortnite. Not the Battle Royale mode, but the Save the World mode. Still, there's a celebration happening in both modes, and there's like these temporary challenges. You can find these birthday cakes, and you can dance at them, and I've been plugging away at that. It's like a fun little distraction. And there's like the party bus sings the happy birthday song, and it's got all this. It's got a cake on top of it. I don't know. It's fun. I like when games do like theme redecorations, and it's fun. Beyond
They
that,
seem to like do something every day. It seems like there's something new. They just memorialize that shopping cart death thing, and that only happened like a few days ago. There's already like a memorial on there. It's crazy how often
it's absurd, man.
add stuff.
It's been a challenge to cover. I don't have enough arms or brains, but it's always fun at the very least. It's an easy game to like because it just constantly, even if it's like an insignificant change, something new will come, and I can just like look at the new thing and then for like 10 minutes and then carry on with my life, and I'm like, oh, I played a game today, and I didn't really, but.
I'm so curious, James, because like I love Fortnite. I think it's really fun. But every time I sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna play some games, and then I look at Fortnite. Like I even have it on my Switch, and I have enjoyed it playing on Switch. But anytime I look at it, I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna play something else instead. And I think part of that is because Fortnite feels like a big investment of like, I'm gonna go into this round, I'm gonna have to like farm gear, like that loop of like dropping, farming, and then fighting and probably dying in my case.
It is.
Kind of wears on me, and I'm curious as like someone who has like continually been able to stick with Fortnite. What's your secret? How are you still finding a way to enjoy this game?
Tim made me.
But I was wondering if you're going to be honest about it. But I mean, okay,
part of it is like that is my job, but I think we're privileged in that like we have so many games to play. And for a lot of people, like I'm not saying this is the only reason people like Fortnite, but I think it is a reason a lot of people stick with it is because it's free and because they don't have to spend money on anything else, or they maybe can't, and it's the game they have. It's right there and it's available everywhere. So I think like people just by the nature of how Fortnite is distributed and what it costs, like I think just stick with it. And I don't know, it is a time investment, but a shitload of people still play Dota, and I can't even fathom, like, I guess Dota, maybe you get into the action a bit earlier. I don't know what Dota is anymore, but there are comparable games that I think are more surprising. I just also like it. I like farming. It's like meditative the whole first 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes of a match. And
Right.
the updates have sort of spread people out more, so you're more likely to get into some action early on, I think. But
I think maybe it's just one of those weird like mental hurdles. You know that feeling when you're like, I like this game, but I just don't want to play it right now.
I still feel that way sometimes, like with Fortnite, and it's not always what I want to do, but I am becoming accustomed to it. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much, like I said, I played Warframe and No Man's Sky, and Monster Hunter, which we'll get to. Why don't we just talk about Monster Hunter right now? Let's just go to Monster Hunter, because this is
Would that be so crazy if we just jumped right in? Can we do that?
Let's get wild here.
Oh my god.
So Monster Hunter World PC, yeah, I think a couple weeks ago we got the announcement. It's coming out August 8th, I believe, and we just got code, and we're allowed to talk about it to an extent. We can't do a full review. I haven't even played it that much anyway, so. But we can talk about sort of like our early impressions with the port and the quality of that. And I think that's the big question most people have anyway, right? Is this a good port?
Yeah.
Is it a bad port?
Especially today, because there's been already some like accounts going around that kind of, some people are saying the port is really bad. Some people are saying the port is just fine.
The word is all over the place. But
yeah,
you and I played at least like the intro section. Did you get actually to the hub? Did you?
Yes. So I've played through the hub, and I've gotten on. I took on my first mission.
Gotcha. So maybe give us a rundown of your specs and sort of like what you're running it at and your experience with it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm playing on an i5 3570K, so it's an older i5, and I'm also playing with a GTX 970, so it's an older card. I don't meet the recommended specs on either of those, I don't believe. But the great thing is that I am playing on the high settings preset, and at 1080p, I've been getting a smooth 60. Sometimes it drops down to like 50 in really crowded, dense areas, but like for the most part, it's been solid 60, and it controls really well for me. I know not everyone has that. There might be like a day one patch coming out. There might be NVIDIA drivers might help the performance that we're seeing from sort of other sort of writers on the internet saying like, oh, this game's really buggy. I know Tom Senior is saying that he's having a lot of problems with stuttering. I haven't had any problems with stuttering. It's running perfectly fine for me. I'm actually so relieved because it seems to be moving really well, and that's a game that like needs to be played at 60 frames per second or higher, and it wasn't on the PS4, and so I'm real relieved to be able to have such smooth performance.
Right on. Yeah, and I played it on a juicier system, I'll say. I played through the same section, like up to my first mission, with an i7 7700 HQ, GTX 1070, 16 gigs of RAM, and I did it at 1920 by 1080, so I can't comment on higher resolutions. We don't really know. I'm assuming the real hit's going to be at 4K and such if you're trying to, or 1440p if you're trying to run at highest settings. But on the highest settings preset, in most areas I was staying at 60. Some of the bigger areas where you have a lot of creatures and plants and foliage and lighting effects coming in and like big draw distance, like I did see diffs down to like 45 at certain points. But when in the smaller arenas where in the beginning you see two big monsters duke it out for a bit, like solid 60 throughout all that. I was worried like getting too many of those big guys on screen would be a problem, and so far doesn't seem to be a big performance hit.
Right.
In the hub, I messed around with like turning down the presets. We'll have more like detailed performance analysis, obviously later on. But in the hub, I was getting like on the highest preset, getting a nice like 60 frames. Bumped it down to high, and I instantly got 10 more frames. Like so, it was like 70 to 75. Bumped it down to mid, and it went up to a consistent 80 or higher. So, and like the visual difference between those is it's kind of real. It's hard to notice unless you're really looking for it. So
Yeah, that game has really strong art direction, I would
Yeah.
say. So I think it goes sort of a good distance in like masking the differences. The other thing is like obviously highest, and this is true with any game, like ultra settings, the performance or the visual clarity gains that you get from like high and ultra in a lot of those presets tends to like not necessarily make sense in terms of the performance drawback. So like I'm not sure if we like stacked up your highest settings against my high settings and how they would compare visually, if it really makes a difference. I'm someone that tends to not really notice those things. I would prefer to have smooth frame rate over like the absolute maxed out graphics. The other thing I wanted to call out that I found really interesting with the graphics setting, number one, they're quite detailed, so that's great. You don't need to worry too much about having really limited graphics settings. So there seems like there's a lot of room for sort of maneuvering and tweaking to kind of find the best setup for your system. But one thing that I found was really interesting was there's several options that tailor the graphics sort of on the fly. So there's dynamic resolution scaling. And did you not notice this, James?
No, I didn't have a time to really dig into that. But
okay, I spent a lot of time looking through the graphics. So there's dynamic resolution scaling. There's also dynamic level of detail scaling. So depending on how like stressed out your system is, you can set it so that it will sort of change at sort of what distances high res models and things like that load in. So I think that's cool. It should hopefully help people give that extra little oomph out of the performance. I can't remember the last time I saw a PC game with dynamic resolution scaling. So
yeah, that's pretty rad. And I think the takeaway here is that like in the early environments, we don't know. Some of the other environments are pretty busy and visually different. I don't know what that'll do or if anything.
Yeah.
But early on, it's like pretty promising. We have a couple weeks to play with it, and they have developers and graphics.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say, thank God, the mouse and keyboard controls are good.
Yeah, they're fine. I think they would work much better in something like this over a Dark Souls, because you're not always locked on, and you're running around facing away from the monster quite often. So and some of the I don't know, I haven't dug into the like item wheel stuff or any of that. Have you played with any of that stuff yet?
No, not really.
So that stuff remains to be seen, but it feels good on a mouse in with WASD. So,
yeah. I think like one of the things I really love about it is lots of times in these games you see like the user interface, they still try and use like the console version of the user interface.
Yeah.
This one has like full mouse control in menu. So you still have a mouse cursor, you can click and drag things and stuff like that. So I think item management, which is arguably like the second half of Monster Hunter's formula, is just messing around in your inventory, dinking around in there. I think that's going to be just fine on a mouse and keyboard. You don't have to worry about like having to use WASD to navigate the interface itself. So
yeah, it's looking good right now.
It's good. I'm happy.
And I played that game you played through it on PS4 as well, and it's a damn good game. So I think it's gonna be a hit, assuming we are not the outliers in this instance.
Right, with the performance. Yeah. I hope that I think the PC right now is in like a sore spot where it really needs a co-op sort of loot-based grinding game, but one that doesn't really have all of the pitfalls of like live service games like Destiny 2 or most MMOs where like that kind of stuff is sort of gated out to you and drip fed. Monster Hunter is a game that you can just go wild grinding on with your friends, and I think there is definitely room for that on the PC right now.
I'm excited to get in there. We'll have to play together. Cool. So Monster Hunter, we'll have plenty more to say on it in the coming weeks. You can count on that. But for now, looking pretty good. Let's move on to like a game that's had a rebirth, we might say. No Man's Sky. Who would have thought that No Man's Sky would? How many people were playing it concurrently yesterday, Chris?
Yesterday, I think the peak concurrent was about 41,000. And
that's like nowhere near its like launch numbers, but that's impressive for a game getting an update.
It's at a.
Sorry, Chris is freezing on me. You all right, Chris? There you are. Okay, sorry we lost you.
I'm freezing. Everything's freezing up on me.
Y'all good now? We hear
I'm
you
good.
now. We're good. Okay. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, it's it's back on the. I noticed prior to next release that it was kind of climbing slowly back up the Steam top sellers, and was a global top seller today. So yeah, it's had kind of a rebirth, which was kind of the idea. I think with the expansion, it kind of rebooted the universe altogether. If you boot up one of your old saves, you're going to notice that a lot of the shit you've acquired is obsolete.
Great.
So it's like kind of like a relaunch in a way. It's kind of a soft relaunch.
So what, for those of the people who don't know, what is new in next? What's the big feature list?
Well, I guess the biggest is the multiplayer and third-person perspectives. Multiplayer, obviously, it was never intended to be a true multiplayer game, but as probably we all know, you were supposed to, if you did happen to run into another player, which was supposed to be very unlikely in a universe this size.
Right.
There should have been something happening. You should be able to see them and interact with them, at least see them there, and that never happened. And we found out, I think last week, that never happened because the feature was not actually in the game, which is kind of a big deal in a way, because I think even on like the PlayStation version, like it was on the box that it was multiplayer, and it just wasn't there. Like we never knew if it was broken, if it was a server problem. It just wasn't there. So now it's there. You can see people, and so that's a big thing. And you can team up with your friends, which I think is great. It's a fun place to explore. I've only did a little bit with Tyler yesterday just to see if it worked, and yeah, it worked. He joined my game. He was right there. Later, I joined some strangers game. They kind of put you in the same system, and I just flew over, and yeah, I could see him, and we could talk and stuff. So it works. You can play with people now.
Yeah. To elaborate, the way it works, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, is there's 4-player co-op where you will see human bodies. If you were playing with those people in sort of a structured co-op environment. But then there's also the sort of more open-ended multiplayer, which is that you have, even when you're playing solo, there's a chance to sort of encounter other players, but that's when they'll appear as sort of these floating orbs. They can't really interact with you in the same way that you can in the co-op mode, but you can kind of like communicate.
From my understanding, and there's a lot of discussion about exactly how this part works, but
right.
One of the previous updates added this kind of orb thing where you could interact, you could hear people, they would just appear as an orb, and that is still part of the game. And I think that works, like you said, when you're in solo and you encounter someone by chance. If you happen to pass by someone, that's how they'll appear as an orb. If you join a game, you can choose from the menu, like I want to play in someone else's game, and you join them. You're not really co-op. They haven't invited you. You're not friends with them on Steam or anything, but you can still see them as people, as actual characters. So I think the orb thing is, if you happen to run across someone randomly, which probably won't happen too often. But I haven't seen that happen myself yet, and there's still some kind of confusion, like how many people can be together in the same spot and how many can you see? I don't know. They did not do a great job of explaining it, but the orb thing is from a prior update, and I think it's when you're not grouped and you run into someone.
Weird.
And I was intending to try out PvP. I thought, well, I'll just join someone's game and fly over and kill them just to see how that works. But I got there and this guy was just building a house alone, on this planet, and he was like, "You have a really nice spaceship. Can I fly up there and stand on it and take a picture?" And I was like, I was preparing to kill this guy, and I was like, "I can't do this. This guy, he's building a little house. He's really nice." So I haven't tried killing anyone because I'm a softie.
Is chat on with strangers if you join kind of a public lobby? Is chat on? Voice chat?
Yeah, chat's on.
Okay.
You can mute people individually, but I can hear him immediately. As soon as I entered the system, I could hear his his microphone.
So if I enter someone else's game, how does it? I haven't had a chance to play multiplayer yet. I've just been playing by myself and experience everything sort of from a single player standpoint. But if I join someone's game, how does that reconcile sort of? Because you said it kind of puts you in the same system as them, but then how does it reconcile that with my sort of single player save and where I am on my own? Does that make sense?
Yeah. As far as I can tell, because I like joined this guy's game and then I logged off, and when I was using my creative mode save and he was in normal mode, he was building and collecting resources and stuff. So like my creative mode self came in and it was fine. And when I was done with him, later I loaded up my creative mode save and it didn't affect my save.
Okay.
So I think like the stuff I collect while I'm in a session, I keep it, but I don't think it has any other real effect on the save game you have.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question that kind of hangs over this is, do you guys think Next makes No Man's Sky good?
Well, I mean, they revamped a lot besides adding multiplayer. Like they basically, as far as I understand, the opening hours of the game are fairly different. And they like rope in crafting, the new crafting, which apparently they've had. I didn't touch any of the crafting stuff as it came out over the years. They've added that back into the tutorial.
I played through the first few hours like with a new save just to see how it was, and it's kind of the same thing. You're on a planet, your spaceship's crashed, you have to repair it, you got to go do a couple little missions and pick up parts and learn how to craft and stuff, and it's definitely a situation of them kind of doubling down on the crafting system and adding more steps. So, rather than just farming plutonium to fuel up your ship, now it's like kind of a multi-step thing where you take two elements and then you put them in a refiner. Well, you have to build a refiner, so you have to get resources for that. There's like extra steps and refinements, and it is a kind of like a more complex multi-step process for a lot of different things. And things like building parts, you need to research blueprints and then that kind of thing for a lot of these building parts. So it's definitely like intending to be a more kind of comprehensive crafting system than it actually was. I don't know, like that's not particularly why I'm interested in No Man's Sky for the crafting stuff, but I think there are a lot of people who are pretty happy because they enjoy the universe, they enjoy being in this world, and they want more stuff to do. And this feels like if you really wanted to build a base from scratch somewhere, like you're gonna have a lot of different tools and tasks and stuff to do. Which I think is probably good. If you're not interested in crafting, you can just play creative mode and not have to worry about it at all. So
right. I will say that like the more I play of it, the more like when I first went back into it, and I've never played it on PC. I played it on PS4 when it first came out, and like I think a lot of people like 6 hours in was just like, wow, this kind of is super boring, and I'm now done with this game for good. Coming back into it, at first I was really disappointed because it did just feel like the same game, but with like more arduous crafting in order to kind of achieve things. Yeah. Now that I've kind of sunk another few hours into it and kind of gotten into the core sort of loop of exploring and gathering and doing whatever else you kind of really want to do, I'm finding myself enjoying it a lot more. It's so crazy to me, at least for me personally, how much the third-person camera angle changes my experience with the game. I find now having sort of like this physical body on the planet actually like makes it more immersive for me, where like I'm far more, and there's also been a lot of graphical upgrades, and I think those are kind of subtly contributing to it as well. But like there's just more and more I'm finding myself kind of stopping and like soaking in the scenery and being like, wow, this is actually kind of impressive. Whereas I didn't necessarily feel that way the first time I played that game. There was like a few times where I was like, ooh, pretty planet, but then it just didn't mean anything. Now I think it's getting closer and closer to kind of fulfilling that promise I think that people wanted out of it.
Yeah, I'm only a few planets in, and I've noticed so much more variation, and just there's texture. I think they did something literally to how terrain renders at a distance. Also, the cloud tech is amazing. I think it's like you'll get these shadows casting down. Maybe that was in there previously, but blotting out your view, and they look more vaporous and realistic. Small details like
Yeah.
go a long way. It's still like one of the most screenshotable games I think I've ever seen. I'm constantly
Yeah.
astounded by things I see. I am still disappointed in, and we were talking about this morning, is that the creature variation is
It's terrible.
It's pretty bad. They're pretty goofy looking most of the time, and still very
Yeah.
samey. Have you guys seen
It's kind
anything
of weird.
interesting?
Like I feel like because I've landed on probably 50 planets in the past few days with Next, and I feel like they're kind of downplayed now. I think they maybe changed the spawning code so there aren't as many because I used to feel like you land, you pop out. Unless you're on like a dead planet, an airless planet, there's going to be something there, and there's probably going to be 5 different types of something within view. And there's still creatures, but they're not anywhere near as populated as they were. I haven't seen anything particularly large. I think in one of the updates they added kind of larger creatures, but those were always so awkward trying to walk around the procedural terrain that they just look kind of dumb.
Yeah.
It feels to me like that all the creature stuff, like it's kind of been sidelined a bit more than it used to be.
I'm not too sad about it. I suppose it would be nice. But I'm still seeing so many cool planets, and I think they've done a better job making the stuff you find and do on planets interesting. But more so, just the variation. And Chris, you were talking about one you found this morning. I don't know if you wrote it up already or not, but if you did, I'll link to it in chat. Can you talk to us about that, the most depressing planet you've ever seen, and maybe some others that you've encountered along the way?
Yeah, it'll be written up this afternoon. I just need to make a couple little videos. I found this system, and I like when there's not just interesting planets, but an interesting system where there feels like there's maybe a theme. There were 3 planets. One was it was described as a paradise planet in the scan, and one was described as a forsaken planet, and they were kind of side by side. I was like, oh, you kind of have like the good and the bad here. But I noticed this other planet kind of further away, and it was called a terraforming catastrophe.
All right.
Which is a designator. That designator's been in the game for a while, but I couldn't remember what kind of planet that was. It usually meant it was dead. There was no life on it. So I went to visit it, and you know how colorful and lush this game is pretty much all the time. As I came through the atmosphere, like the color just started to bleed away from everything. And by the time I landed, it was almost black and white. It was like going from Oz back to Kansas. Like there's the color was just drained out of everything. Like my ship's engines, my suit. It was almost like kind of monochromatic world, except for the water, which was brown.
Great.
It was this really like, it was always like foggy. It rained a lot. Clouds and mist, and there was no color in anything. There was no vibrancy to anything. Like these creatures just looked miserable. And it was just weird. It was just interesting to see like it's so desaturated compared to pretty much any other planet I've ever been on. And then, leaving again, you get this burst of color. It's like, oh yeah, this game is very colorful and lush. And this particular planet, either the atmosphere or something about it just like sucks the life out of it. So it was kind of interesting.
I mean, that's good to hear, because like, if anything, I hope they just, for the sake of variation, I hope the developers went back and just said, fuck it, we're gonna have planets that are it's sepia tone the planet, and it's gonna screw up the lights just so, even if it doesn't make sense, we're just gonna let it happen. I'm hoping it's not a bug.
But I think that's I think that's what they should have done all along, because nothing about the procedural generation makes sense. These aren't planets that have any kind of semblance of like actual geography or any kind of sense of time passage. There's not like mountain peaks that are like weathered. Like there's not valleys that were weathered by a river 2 million years ago. It is literally just some mathematical function just laying all this stuff out semi-randomly. And so I think, yeah, embrace like the zaniness of it. I think for me, like, I want to play more No Man's Sky, which is sort of like the best thing I can say about it at this point. Is like I've sunk 3 hours into it over the last couple days since it's come out, and I want to play more. It's reignited my interest in that game. I think it's fun to do stuff. I think there's still like, I can't tell you how enormously disappointed I am by how poorly simulated space is. The fact that planets just hang in a static location and don't actually orbit. There's no like real simulation of solar systems. There's always asteroids everywhere for some weird reason. Like no matter where you are in space, there's always asteroids, which really bothers me. But at this point, like I think it's just I gotta let that stuff go because it's probably not going to change. I can't imagine the next update is going to be like, oh, now we've made it a lot more like Elite Dangerous and we've realistically modeled this universe. No, so I think for what it is, it's closer to that sort of initial vision of this relaxing, explorative, sort of very contemplative game, with now things that are kind of worth doing. Whereas the first version of it was just like 4 hours in, you had seen and done everything you were going to do in that game for the next 4 hours, and now there's like fleets. Like we haven't even talked about that, but like apparently with Next you can control entire like armadas, and there's a lot more like in-depth economy and things. So
cool. I mean, that all sounds cool. Whether or not I'll get to it, we'll see. I think at least the difficulty levels and allow for kind of whatever you want it to No Man's Sky to be. You can be that now. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely like these updates all combined. They don't just add stuff; they add like support for different play styles and different interests. And I think that's great, and I think that's why people are excited. It's like, oh, finally this thing I kind of thought I might want to do, now I can do it. There's still survival mode if you want to play super hardcore. There's creative if you just want to look at planets, and then there's base building stuff if you want to make a home, but there's also teleporters so you can still travel and get back to your base instantly. So it's kind of become this, like, I don't even know what it is or how close it is to the original vision, but I think everyone kind of had their own vision for it, and this supports a lot of different visions for it. So
yeah, I'm excited. I think for me, I'm curious how you guys are going to play it. For me, it's just going to be, I'm excited to do multiplayer creative mode and just dink around, find what's cool, take photos. How do you plan on playing it, Chris?
Yeah, mostly I've always just been interested in exploring and feeling like I'm finding interesting, noteworthy stuff. So that's what I'm probably going to be focusing on. I do have like this new saved game where I, am following the path and crafting and stuff, which I do still want to do. I want to see if there's something in there that I enjoy. But for the most part, it's about finding cool planets and landing on them and seeing if there's something kind of neat and something that makes me go, oh, this is different than, not just a little different, but this is something different than I've experienced in this game before.
Cool.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I've always been kind of the everyman, so I just kind of want to experience everything it has to offer. I heard that the story, one of the, I don't know if Next added anything, but one of the updates around that time or since launch has added apparently some significant amount of story. So I'm interested in sort of checking that out. I was reading some people on, I think it was Reddit or something like that yesterday, comparing it to Subnautica, which really piqued my interest, because Subnautica for me is like the best exploration sort of sandbox survival game of the last few years. And so having anyone sort of compare the story to that, I'm immediately intrigued. But yeah, like I kind of just want to fly around and do some crafting and see where it goes and see how it feels.
Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it in the future. The developers have announced that like they're going to support it with at least another year of updates and weekly missions and some more frequent sort of frequent updates as time goes on, as opposed to these big, once a year, twice a year dealios. And I think that'll be a nice way to experience that game. It's in a good place right now at the very least. So, hooray! I'm happy
No
about
Man's
it.
Sky feels like a game, by the way, that like would so benefit from stealing a bit of the design philosophy of Fortnite, which is like
Yeah.
if they were just doing ninja updates to that game constantly, where like you're logging in one day and you just don't know what you're going to find anymore, which is what Fortnite feels like in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think that would be really to its benefit, especially in sort of like Chris, you were saying, oh, I want to find something that kind of means something. I want to find something noteworthy. I feel like if they were to do that, there's, they'd be giving a lot of those players exactly that.
Yep. And maybe
Yeah,
they
I
will.
agree.
Maybe they will. I mean, it's
Who knows? Who can say? It's weird though. It's weird that like Sean Murray's back out on Twitter. He's talking. He's cracking jokes. I figured that man was a husk by now, but he seems to be doing quite
seems
well.
to be doing all right. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Good health and wishes to Sean.
Yeah. I mean, as much as that controversy was in some ways like, oh, they shouldn't have lied.
Yeah.
At the same time,
Very
people
naive.
shouldn't have told him to kill himself so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm happy that he's okay. I'm happy that this game can finally get back on track, and hopefully everyone can just forget that very ugly period of history.
I agree. But now onto a game that's been alive for much longer than No Man's Sky. World of Warcraft. So
Yeah.
new expansion it's imminent, is it not?
Yeah, like less than 3 weeks. Yep. 19 days, I think.
And you're our guy. You're our WoW guy, Steve. So maybe talk
I'm the WoW
about
guy.
what you know about it so far, your experience with it so far, and like the pre-launch, which I think you've told us is a buzzkill. What's going on there, and what you expect out of this expansion.
So if you're kind of new to this and maybe you haven't played World of Warcraft in a long time, I'll say like right off the bat, I really enjoy this game and I think it's worth giving a second chance if you haven't played it in a little while. So we just came out of Legion, which was the last expansion, and it was crazy. Legion ended with you killing a god, and then that god, as this like final stroke, like stabbed this continent-sized sword into Azeroth. And now Azeroth is dying. The planet that everyone sort of lives on in World of Warcraft is dying. And of course, that's the perfect time for everyone to just go to war against each other. Because why? If things are already fucked, you might as well just go like full ham. And so it's called Battle for Azeroth, and it's kind of re-triggering this initial conflict between the Alliance and the Horde. Orcs and humans are back at it again, trying to kill one another. And so I've been playing the beta because the beta has been available for some time now, and it really gives you like basically the full expansion experience. So I've been leveling through it and playing it as close to what the launch version will look like, which is great. There's a lot of like cool new modes in there that I think are really interesting and innovative in a lot of ways, which is cool. World of Warcraft is like reaching this point where like, yes, it looks old. It's a 14-year-old game. It doesn't look great. But they have some really innovative ideas that they're packing into it that I think are really healthy for the MMO genre, and other MMOs would do well to steal or borrow from into their own games. And so like one of the ones is like this Island Expeditions, which is this competitive PvE mode where it's like you and a team of 3, or as part of a team of 3, you go onto a procedurally generated island against another team of 3, and they can either be very smart NPCs or real players. And it's sort of like an asymmetrical I don't know, like competitive game mode where like you are going through this island, there's monsters to kill, there are mini quests to do, and everything you do kind of gives you points, and whoever reaches 6,000 points first wins. But then there's also the strategy of like, okay, we're going to kill these monsters, but maybe we should go and surprise the enemy team and kill them, and we'll get points for killing them. And then maybe, you know, there's like lots of wacky ideas. The islands can change, events can trigger that will like significantly change like what you're doing and how you should approach the situation. So it's very I always kind of liken it to like an improv. Like if you look at the typical MMO dungeons, it's like choreography, right? You learn this boss, you do these moves, and then you'll win. And it's very static and the same. This is more like improv, which is like every time you go to this island, something crazy could happen. Cool. There's like magma lords that can pop up, and then there's mini dungeons. And if you go into the mini dungeon, then the enemy team can come from behind and sandwich you between the magma lord and kill you, and then steal the treasure and win the game. And so there's lots of potential, I think, for cool competitive modes. I think it's going to be a great expansion. I'm a little bit worried because I think and this feeds into the pre-expansion event, James, that you talked about.
Yeah.
So with expansions coming up, they always kind of like try and, you know, get people hyped. And they do that with like a pre-launch event. And last year, or the one for Legion, was fantastic. It was really cool. Demons were invading Azeroth. It was a great way to level new characters. You got some cool gear out of it. Like it kind of like ticked all the boxes of what people would want out of an expansion event. This one is like purely story based. So it's just a quest line, a single quest line that is like divided up over 3 weeks. So you do like 30 minutes of questing, and then you just have to wait a week, and then you can do 30 minutes more, which isn't a great setup by any means. But then it's also just purely focused on the story, but it's focused on the Horde versus Alliance conflict, which I think anyone who's like a World of Warcraft fan will tell you it feels pretty contrived right now. I'm hoping that they can maybe they have some aces up their sleeve that'll make it interesting. But right now, it almost doesn't feel like we should be fighting each other at all. And they're inventing some really lame excuses to make this turn into like a world war. So, yeah, that was a lot of World of Warcraft I just talked through.
Well, I mean, it does strike me that like World of Warcraft will never be at peace. It's always going to be fucked up. But it is.
Yeah, it's the World of War.
It's the World of War, and that is lame. That's like surprising because I remember I played some of Legion. I didn't play like very much. I dabble in WoW. I like going back into the expansions and getting a taste of an idea of what they're all about. But I could never like go full force into them ever again. But the events leading up to Legion were great. If I remember correctly, it was like there were. In some of these old regions all around the map, they were just the Legion would spawn in all these like waves of enemies, and everyone in the area would come around and try and take them out for some rewards. And it made the world feel alive, which it sounds like this event just sounds like you read some text and maybe talk to some people and you're kind of done.
Yeah, like it's just it's. Compared to what they did with Legion, it just kind of feels, they're trying really hard to sort of set the story, like kind of get the prologue beats out of the way.
Sure.
But it's just not that interesting. So that said, like the expansion itself, what I have played, and I wrote something about, here, I'll post it in the chat while I'm talking, or I'll do it after. But I wrote something about one of the new zones that I've been playing through, and like, the new zones are some of the best I've ever seen in World of Warcraft. Like the way they're designed, they feel very detailed and interesting and moody. Like it's crazy that I'm about to say this, but like they felt atmospheric and moody. One of them is like this blood troll infested swamp, and so there's these cannibalistic blood trolls everywhere, and it's really like grim and dark. And exploring through that has been like really interesting, and there's been times where I've like stopped to just soak in the surroundings, which earlier I said World of Warcraft's a 14-year-old game and it doesn't look that good. The old zones don't look that good. I think the new zones and like their sort of ever evolving artwork and environment work is like continually getting better. And I think the stuff they're doing with Battle for Azeroth is the best World of Warcraft has looked in a long time. So as a WoW fan, I'm real excited for it. I hope that they don't screw it up. But it feels like there's so much at stake with the new expansion, because if any one system kind of sucks, it's gonna suck for 2 years.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, cool. So when is Legion officially out? When is that happening?
Battle for Azeroth, you mean?
Or yeah, Jesus. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Legion's already out. Battle for Azeroth is coming out in August 13th in North America.
Okay.
And so
I guess on the tail of that, some pretty like this made me happy, and like I think a lot of like maybe lapsed WoW fans, is that the payment model has changed. Is that right?
Yeah, so they've basically scrapped the upfront box fee. So it used to be you had to buy the battle chest, and the battle chest had World of Warcraft and all of the old expansions, and then you also had to buy the new expansion, and then you had to pay a subscription fee. And that was really dumb. Now they've gotten rid of it. And now you just have to buy the new expansion and the subscription fee, and then you're good to go. So, realistically, it saves people anywhere from $5 to $20, but it makes the process less confusing, and you're saving $5 to $20. So,
hey, that's penny saved is a penny earned. Is that the saying? I don't know what the saying.
I have no
idea.
That's
not it at all.
I've never saved money in my life.
I don't know what that means. Chris, you gonna roll a new tune? Hit up Ironforge and what are the Stormwind and I don't know anything about WoW.
Goldshire. I was gonna say I think we should force Chris to do a story where we make him erotic roleplay. in Goldshire.
The Goldshire on, I forget the name
The
of the
Goldshire
server.
brothel. It's the famous place to go get your jollies off online.
I played World of Warcraft once for an hour. Entire experience of World of Warcraft.
It's so weird
Hey,
how like some people
now.
just are like, I will never play this game. It sucks. And then other people like me are like, I have years of my life invested in this game.
Yeah,
I didn't think it sucked. I'm not like I've never really I've played a couple MMOs, but I get into them for like a month. Like I played Lord of the Rings online for like a solid month. Just suddenly was like, I don't think this is for me. And I played what was the superhero one? City of Heroes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
I
like the
played that.
old one.
I played that for maybe 3 months. But MMOs typically not my jam.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your coverage on Battle for Azeroth, Steven. It's gonna be it's always interesting to see new WoW stuff because that they're trying to keep this very old game afloat and it's doing just fine and it still has a hefty audience. So.
I would say like they don't publish their subscription numbers anymore, but like obviously like I enjoy this game, so like there's this element of like Steven enjoys this game, of course he wants to see it do well. I would say that like with Legion, World of Warcraft is probably doing as good as it ever has. I don't know if it's like quite at the 10 million subscriber number that it used to be at, but that was also like insane. What game has ever had that many people?
Yeah, that was groundbreaking, especially like at the time.
Yeah.
So. Awesome. But let's answer some questions from Twitch chat. So, one sec. It looks like I thought we lost the stream there. Okay. Whew. Yeah. So if you have questions for us in about video games, World of Warcraft, survival games, DayZ, life, we get questions about rent sometimes. Whatever you want to ask us, we'll answer it.
Rent? Like,
how
much do you pay in rent?
Yeah, what's good rent? Someone asked us what good rent was once, and I didn't know what to say. Yeah, so any question, tag at PC Gamer in the chat. We do prioritize questions from the Discord, PC Gamer Club Discord. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go to club.pcgamer.com to find out more. It's like a $5 monthly subscription fee. It's a way to support us directly. That gives you some pretty nice perks, including an ad-free experience on the site, an invite to the aforementioned Discord, which is a pretty booming community nowadays. You get a free game each month. You get a digital subscription to our magazine, which is just it's so good. So there's some great long form editorial in there, and some stuff you won't see on the site. You get first access to whatever beta keys or we happen to get. We'll always throw those to our club members first. I know like Hunt Showdown is one of those. And we have some in-game cosmetics for some games that we're trying to make a growing library of those. So you get quite a bit. It's like $5 a month. Not bad. High glossy photos of the Bath Geralt, Tub Geralt, the old meme that is.
Now we got that big Geralt.
I know. We need to get some high glossy JPEGs of big Geralt soon. I don't think. What are we gonna do, guys? Like
with big Geralt?
I mean, I like. Are all our memes going to have to be Geralt from now on? Do you think there's ever going to be a character that can supplant Geralt at this point?
Mozu was close.
Mozu was close, but I think Mozu was like a PC Gamer enthusiast meme. If you're like super into PC Gamer and you've been, it's like it required a little bit more to go on, but
I don't know. I'm fine with it. I think we should have a calendar that just rotates between like month 1, January is Tub Geralt, February is Big Geralt, March is Tub Geralt.
Yeah. We got, I forgot, but when Tom had some of the Warframe folks on for the podcast back when, they whipped him up a custom Warframe tub photo with Space Mom, is that her name? Or what's the lead lady in the tub?
Space Mom.
Yeah, it's great. So we'll have to get that out for some future updates. So yeah, if you have your questions, tag PC Gamer in the chat. Let's start with our Discord questions, though. Let me get them up. JBJ Blaze asks, with yesterday's release of the Hamster and His Faithful Robotic Ball mech, that's Wrecking Ball in Overwatch, which name should the critter don officially in the game? And there's some uproar over the name because it's maybe not uproar, but confusion. What name should the critter don officially in the game? Wrecking Ball, a bad pun. Team Hammond for JBJ Blaze, or something else? Do you think he should Overwatch hero Wrecking Ball be named something else? Hammond,
Just Hammond.
Hammond. Do you think it's a bad name?
I think Wrecking Ball is just like a mouthful. I feel like it doesn't necessarily fit in with any of the other naming conventions because basically everyone else is either their first name or like a code name, like Reaper or Soldier 76. But then like Wrecking Ball, I don't know. I guess that's not exactly true what I just said, but it just doesn't sound good.
I think it's pretty silly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. I don't give a shit.
I think whatever people call him will be what he's called. It seems like it's like when a baseball park changes sponsors.
Right.
You're still gonna call it whatever it was called
Exactly.
the first time.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't really care. I think it describes what he does and sort of is. So I think maybe that was what they had in mind. Like maybe they thought his movement was too complex or his play style wouldn't come across to people, and they were like, just I don't know, call him what you should do with him. But I don't know. Blizzard can do better. Maniac86 asks, and don't give away all your trade secrets right now, but how do you guys scope for gaming news? TweetDeck, Google Alerts, RSS feeds, if those still reliably exist. What's your go-to, without giving away your total your secrets?
I'm not like a news writer, so I don't. This should be a question that we should. I'm genuinely would be curious to talk to like one of our news writers and be like, how do you guys do it? Because like anytime I do it, it's mostly just Reddit or like looking at other websites that have already written the news. But like I'm not a news writer. Like I want to make this perfectly clear. That's not what I'm here to do.
It's not any of us. It's not our first job.
Like when I do contribute to news, it's usually because I scoped something on Reddit or saw it on Twitter or something like that. Or even press release comes into my email and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually newsworthy. But like, yeah, as for like actually scoping out news as a news writer, hell if I know.
I think the answer is, and I've seen like in the office, I've seen some of those on some people's monitors, just infinite tabs open, and it's just sickening how many tabs some of these folks have open. There's refreshing all the time, and I can just imagine the memory in Google Chrome just basically hogging all your resources. But I think tabs. People just have everything open all the time. For Fortnite, yeah, I just like there are a lot of good enthusiast Twitters, and there are some. You just get used to the release schedule too for certain things. Like you kind of know when stuff's going to come out and when Epic is going to announce something, or depends on your relationship with the developer. They might send out press releases beforehand under embargo. But I don't know. What about you, Chris? What's your secret?
Yeah, pretty much what you guys do. I just kind of look at Reddit. There's some Twitter accounts like of mods and modders. There's I don't know, emails. I don't know. I have no secrets to impart.
I think
we're professionals.
Someone in our Slack channel going, "Did anyone write about this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I probably should have written about that." So.
That's your secret.
It is like it is an effort of many things coming together to sort of make news happen. So it's a lot of reading of 20 different sources, checking Reddit, checking emails, checking Twitter, checking other websites, but then also having 20 other people all doing that at the same time, and that's how you scrape together a news day.
Yeah, eyes everywhere all the time.
Yeah, we're always watching is what we're trying to say. So,
we're professionals, Maniac, we promise. Before I ask this one, let me ask, does anyone here know what Pathfinder Kingmaker is?
Is that the new Pathfinder game?
Yes. You do know what?
That's all I know.
Okay. Well, I'll ask it.
It's a CRPG.
Yes. Cosmosis today asks, any thoughts on the pending release of Pathfinder Kingmaker? It exists. I'm not familiar with the series. Are you guys familiar with the series at all?
I've played Pathfinder. It's
Okay.
like a really good dungeon. It's like a really good offshoot of D&D 3.5. Like it's super fun.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the developers. Chris Avalon is writing it. Avalon.
Oh, there you go. It's probably gonna be.
So that's good.
well
Deep
written.
Silver, Owlcat Games. All I will say is that like my only experience with Pathfinder in video game format was their MMO that they tried doing, and it was abysmally bad. So
I remember that.
hopefully this fares much better. It looks cool. I mean,
And as
yeah.
sorry, Chris, were you gonna comment on what you think about Pathfinder Kingmaker?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I could
Just
already see
checking.
that Chris had nothing to say.
I'm not gonna comment. I don't really know much about the series. But Cosmosis today follows up with. And what do you guys think about the whole return of isometric turn-based RPGs overall? I guess CRPGs, the genre.
I'm really happy with it. I think
Yeah.
like that is a genre that it was a shame that it kind of disappeared
Yeah.
because it was such a distinctive type of role-playing game.
Yeah.
And so when everything kind of transitioned to like that, I don't know, like kind of the Dragon Age origins, you know, third-person action, Mass Effect kind of stuff. It's good to see it back. I think that now we're also reaching the point where it's a little bit too saturated, and I don't know. I played Pillars of Eternity 2 for, you know, a dozen hours or so and enjoyed it, but I was also just like, these are big games, and I'm just not the type of person that has the stomach to like see them through to the end. So it's good. I'm happy that there's more choice and that people who enjoy these games can play them.
I think if it's your genre, if it's what you played in the 90s and it's what you missed and now it's like all you want to play again, it's the best time to, you know, be playing these things. So
yeah,
it's
cool how like they're so historic, they're so like, you know, retro in a sense, but then there's like Pillars of Eternity 2 especially was like very retro, but then also like very modern at the same time. It had physics engines for like, or you know, like it would, if you shot a gun, your cloak would billow, and like there was weather effects and the water was physically simulated, and so like there was a lot of like modern tech under the hood that I thought really came together in really cool and interesting ways.
cool. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Mox today with No Man's Sky in mind. I don't know why No Man's Sky is in mind. Maybe this is, well, we'll see. With No Man's Sky in mind, when was the last time you had to stop playing a game because it just wasn't playable on your rig within system requirements and such? So apparently Mox could not run No Man's Sky. It's a shame. You guys ever
The implication.
remember coming across, last time you came across a game that just like bogged down your system too much, that you had to just give up? I have one. Maybe I'll just say it while you're thinking.
Yeah, you start.
Okay, so in high school, my only access to PC gaming, and my dad's here, so hopefully he doesn't hear me, is like I would basically lie to my parents, and when they wanted to order a new PC, like once every, 3 years or something like that, from Dell or Compaq or whatever it was, I would take on the sacred duty of speccing it out, and I would always spec it out with a GPU, at least a GPU. And I think the tail end of my high school career is when the Orange Box came out. Maybe it was like 16, 17. I don't quite remember anymore. But and TF2, for whatever reason, just bogged down that last compact PC to the point where I turned everything low. I had it like on some crazy 4:3 resolution on a widescreen monitor, and I could run it, I could play it until my PC just shut down randomly, like maybe an hour or two into a session, and I crack it open and I look at the fan on my, what was it, like I forget the naming scheme back then for NVIDIA GPUs, but like NVIDIA 8800 or something like that. And
something like that.
The fan had just literally melted off of the off the GPU and fallen into the bottom of the case, and prevented me from playing pretty much everything I owned after that point. So I
can't believe you like legitimately melted a fan.
It was my first experience like with the pitfalls of PC gaming.
That's insane.
You know, learning what cooling, like learning those things got hot at all, really. Like I knew they had fans and I knew, you know, they got hot, but I didn't ever think they got that hot. So
Yeah, I like growing. Mine was kind of similar. I was much younger, but like it was again like since I've been old enough to kind of been fund my own hobbies. I haven't had any issues with not being able to play games. But when I was probably like 10, I had a friend that was real into PC gaming, and he had Medal of Honor Allied Assault, and he was like in a clan, and was playing it all the time, and I'd come over and hang out with him and play a little bit, and I thought it was so cool. And so I downloaded the demo, the multiplayer demo, which was awesome that they even did that. And I had a Pentium 2 233 megahertz processor, no graphics card, and probably 128 megs of RAM, maybe even less. So like not a good computer, certainly not enough for 3D graphics. And I was so adamant on trying to play this game though that I would run the demo and it would blue screen and the computer would have to restart. And I would do that for hours and hours and hours, just hoping that somehow like my computer would like find it within him to like
the little computer that could. You got this.
Like just this one time it would work, and it would always play for like a split second. Like I'd get into the match, it would load, and I'd have a split second where it would run, and I'd be like, oh, and then it would die, and it was so depressing. And I went through that for a really long time. But I could still play other games. Like I remember, I played Counter-Strike 1.5, which was like the big famous Counter-Strike update. And then Steam came out and they updated Counter-Strike to 1.6 and it integrated Steam. And it was literally a patch too far. And I could play 1.5 no problem. 1.6 no bueno. It wouldn't run on my computer, and that was devastating. So I just gave up PC gaming until I was 20. And
that was the case back then, right? If you got off pace and you didn't have the money.
Done. So then like I think I was 21 or 22 when I finally like had a lot of money and was like, I'm gonna shell out big bucks for a PC. And then a few years later I started writing about it, and here I am.
Origin story. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, it's my life, guys.
Anything come to mind, Chris?
I would think most when Ark Survival Evolved came into early access, and it was like I was at the time kind of like, hey, you're an early access guy, why don't you play it? And like I could not, like it was like 3 solid days where I would just start the game and like try to get into the world, and it would take about 15 minutes for it to fail to load and like another 10 minutes to fully crash so I could restart it. It was one of those like horrible situations where not only was it failing, it was taking a really long time to fail. And it's still it's still a really big game, really big and demanding game. But at the time, it was like so, I don't know, wasn't well optimized. It was, even just like changing a few settings, you'd have to restart it, and it was like this loop of failure for like 3 days. And I finally was like, I just can't play it. I can't get in even into like a single player server, and it was just a stressful, horrible 3 days of failure. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it until something changes. And since then, they've obviously done work on it, and I've actually gotten a decent PC since then. So
it is somewhat playable now. It's still pretty tough. It's still pretty tough on.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it took a really long time, but I eventually got it. Ran really smoothly, and it looked really great for like a few months. And then they did some update to it, and since then, like I have to turn a few more settings down so it doesn't look as great as it did for me for that period. I've never quite enjoyed it the same way again, because it's like, it's a little bit better, but still run well. So.
Right on. Cool. This is a good question. I'm sure we all have a great answer for it. Tashi5am asks, what is happening with Star Citizen?
If we told you, we'd have to kill you.
They're making it. That's what they're doing.
We actually have this conversation internally as a team too.
Yeah, every like during our pitch meetings, it's like clockwork. Every 3 months, 2 months or so. Hey guys, what's happening with Star Citizen? They got some system in there now, as opposed to last time. A new ship, someone bought something that was really expensive. I don't know. I'm not. I don't have like bad faith or good faith in
Yeah.
that game.
Well, we'll have to see. I think like if I had to put my money on it, my guess would be that we're actually living in a Metal Gear Solid timeline, and Star Citizen is a way of like getting all this money so that Chris Roberts and his company can buy an island off the coast somewhere and build a base, and it'll be like Zanzibar land, and
Sure.
they'll build missiles and then threaten the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mean,
They have the money.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I get curious about every now and then, like patch notes or an update, and it's 16 pages long, and I'm like, I don't know what this means or if this is. It's like such a big, sprawling system of schedules and notes and this and features. It's like it's really hard to just kind of catch up on like 6 months of Star Citizen development news, at least for me.
Yep. So sit tight, I guess. That's it. That's all we got. And prepare to sit tight for a long time.
Definitely don't try and sue them for your money back.
No. Here's a good one. Stabby McStab 12 asks, how long do you think is a good amount of time before a title releases its first DLC? I think I'm asking this because it's changing over time. It's been over 3 months since Surviving Mars released with season pass options, and I feel like the game has so much potential for new content, but nothing yet. So yeah, DLC. Like when I think of DLC nowadays, I don't think of DLC like I did in the like 5 to 6 years ago in the like Xbox Live module style version of DLC. It's much more frequent now, right? It's much more piecemeal, or at least like that seems to be the trend. But do you guys have a thought on like DLC pacing for game releases?
It's probably not like a one size fits
No.
thing. It depends on the game and how much there is to do, and I mean, it can at times feel like, oh, I wish there was more stuff. Then you'll see some other game that's like, hey, we released a month ago, and now you can buy 3 things or a season pass, but we're not telling you quite what it is yet, but you can buy it, and I don't know, probably on a case by case. Surviving Mars, that's published by Paradox, correct? So that's I would have to wager they will probably have DLC because they do a heck of a lot of DLC for their games. So hopefully not too much longer.
I think I asked this because I think over time, not really because it's not a one size fits all question, but I think over time, games like Fortnite are going to change like the baseline expectation for game updates and the pacing of them, and I kind of worry about what that's going to do to games that or developers that aren't equipped to do that kind of rapid iteration, or their game is not fit for it. But it becoming an industry, or excuse me, like a gaming cultural norm. Not much conclusive to say about that, but yeah. Sorry, Steve. Go.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I feel like we've already kind of seen a hint of that with the battle passes and the way that has just so suddenly rapidly caught on. I'm not sure if Fortnite was the first one to have the battle pass feature, where you, if you don't know how it works, you like pay $10 and then for sort of a season, so a couple of months or whatever, you have sort of this level up system that gets you a bunch of cosmetics, and it's great because you're not buying loot boxes necessarily. You're getting cosmetics, like what you're getting if you reach certain levels. But now like Rocket League has one. I think a few other games like Paladins Realm Royale has one, and if anything, what I'm saying is it makes sense that like Fortnite, we're already seeing the way Fortnite has an influence on the way we buy and spend in games, and so I think it makes absolute sense that their sort of living world updates would have sort of a similar impact.
Yeah, we'll see. Big old question mark on that one. But let's ask one more question. Another one. It's another rhetorical question, and a nice one to end on. I think. Jarhead271 asks, along similar lines to the Star Citizen question. Lost it. Where'd it go? What is happening with Mountain Blade 2?
They're developing it and they're not saying when it's coming out, which I think is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I know, like I'm sitting here like, oh man, I really want to play the game, or at least hear something, hear that it's nearly done. But I think, managing people's expectations is probably a good idea, and I can't imagine how hard it is to predict a release date for something anyway. And I think it's probably the best to just work on it until it's ready and then say it's ready, instead of saying, here's when we think it'll be out and then having to move it, because, that can kind of upset people or make them feel like, oh, things are in terrible shape.
Right. I think when I love those games a lot, and I think when you look at that studio and their development history, I think that's a studio that has been burned on making bad games by pushing them out too early. Like Mountain Blade with Fire and Sword wasn't great, and I think they had one after that wasn't great either. And so take their time, and I think for them this isn't a studio where they can release a bad game, and I think just move on from it and stick around as a studio. I think a lot's riding on this, and so I think it makes sense that they're going to take their time and do it right. And as infuriating as it is, it's good to know. The great thing is it's not completely secret. I played it last year. They had a demo at PAX, and I wrote about it, and it was a lot of fun. It was sort of testing off some of the new features in the battle system, and that's looking really good. I believe that they will be at Gamescom, so you can look forward to some future coverage out of that pretty soon. So there's the things slowly happening, but
be patient. It will pay off. Probably pay off. We'll see. Maybe it's gonna be dog shit. I've never played a Mountain Blade game. I don't know.
They're great.
It's the one where you get on the sword, you get on the horse, and then you do the sword and the bow. Yeah,
but you can get married. You can participate in you can become a professional jouster. You can go to war. You can.
That's the face of the game I don't see, because the face of Mountain Blade as I know it, or at least when I on the outside looking in, is these big sandbox battles that don't look like they're very elegant, but from what I hear,
they're fun though. They're really fun.
Yeah, everything about that game is clunky as hell, but
it's clunky, but it feels somehow really great at the same time.
Yeah,
I trust you, and I'm excited to.
It's hard to talk about, but when people don't know what that game is, there is a whole medieval life simulator playing out where there's other lords and they have personalities and allegiances and kingdoms that they belong to, and all sort of simultaneously these kingdoms are going to war with one another, and it's in the same way that Crusader Kings 2 is this game that sort of tells stories through systems. Mountain Blade is like that, but it's also an action game. So you're also occupying the field of battle and riding through these towns on your horse and meeting people, and you can join guilds, and you can trade things, and you can create scarcity by going to war with a country and then selling them the food that they need to survive, and it's a deep game.
Cool. I look forward to making or trying it out for myself for the first time ever, and
hopefully it's good.
Agreeing with everyone. Right on. Well, I think that's all. We'll call it there. Before we go, just want to remind everyone you can always catch the PC Gamer Show at 1 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/PCGamer. You can catch it after the fact on youtube.com/PCGamer or at pcgamer.com/tag/podcast, where you can find the MP3 RSS feed and iTunes. And we're working on actually getting the podcast on far more subscription services. So fingers crossed, expect to see it on Spotify and HBO. But the Google Music Store, I think, other, everywhere you like to get your favorite podcasts, we'll try to get ours on there as well.
Also, drive over to your house and play it from our car stereos really loudly. I feel like that.
Yeah.
Show up to your
Just out front of your window
yeah.
with a boombox.
You called it. You called it. In the rain. Yeah. But until next week. What was my new catchphrase? Never forget the power of play. Thanks, everyone.
Holy shit.
Yeah, you like this
that
one?
needs work.
It needs
We're gonna
work.
have a meeting
Okay.
about this.
All right. Well,
Never forget the power of play.
we'll get it scheduled. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.